This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Things are closing in. There's a war between the left and the right. We know that this has been going on. It's been going on for a long time. One of us is going to win, and one of us is going to lose. But it's becoming acute. And I'm not advocating violence, but we have to do everything short of violence to make sure that we win. Of course, we're getting no help from our so-called Justice Department, the Department of Injustice. Attorney General Bill Blowhard Barr, and that's what I call him, or Puxatani Bill, I call him, because he puts his head in a hole, much like the Roundhog in Puxatani, Philadelphia, every February 2nd. He's taken a dive on every single issue. This is a green light for the left going into high gear to try to destroy conservatives, people of faith, people who don't believe in socialism and communism, in Islam, and everything else that is inimical to our Judeo-Christian way of life. And I'm not in any way disparaging Muslims. There are good Muslims out there, but I'll tell you something. The religion of Islam is not really a religion, it's a cult. And you can see, even in Israel, that Arabic women who go through domestic choose Israeli law over Sharia law because Sharia law is simply inhuman. But this is the bottom line. Bill Barr takes a dive on indicting Comey, takes a dive on indicting McCabe, takes a dive on indicting Lovebirds, Strzok, and Page, takes a dive on indicting Clapper and Brennan, and of course he declares that the Obamas, then the Clintons, and the Bidens are off limits. We now have a new scandal with regard to the Ukraine. It's an old scandal, but it's been upped because now we know that former Vice President Biden, presidential candidate, was intimately involved in laundering money, millions and millions of dollars from the Ukraine and in China with his half-wit ex-drug addict, assuming he's still ex-son, Hunter Biden. Someone who also refused to accept the fact that he fathered a child. The court had to order him to take responsibility for that. This is someone who Biden, who's brain dead in and of his own right, obviously played a role in jingling the change. Money talks and nobody walks. But don't expect that Barr will do anything there either because Biden's are off limits. Now, why doesn't Barr do anything? Why didn't Sessions do anything? Why doesn't Congress do anything? Why does Lindsey Graham do nothing more than hold a hearing where he was manhandled by James Comey? I mean, it was embarrassing to watch because everybody in Washington, D.C., in a position of power, knows that the deep state, primarily comprised of the intelligence agencies, the CIA, the NSA, the Director of National Intelligence, etc., has dirt on them, everybody else. They don't want to risk representing the American people. They're cowards. They're not like our founding fathers who pledged their honor, their fortunes, and risked their lives to found a new nation. These people are, frankly, lowlives who are there to profit at the trough of government. Go to Washington, D.C. these days. See the buildings. See the money. Never a recession. And that's why I wrote my book, It Takes a Scandal Industry. Excuse me, it's a play on words. It takes a revolution, forget the scandal industry. Because we need to rise up now, and we need to wage the second American Revolution.
Not like Hannity says in his book, Live Free or Lie. That's what I call it. I mean, it's just basically a compilation of his monologues written by his staff. And then he says, vote for Donald Trump. Well, even Donald Trump, and I support the president, and I would like to see him win. I say that personally, because he's certainly a whole lot better than Biden. But even Donald Trump, to some extent, is afraid of this deep state. We see what it's done to him in the past. Ask yourself the question, why is it that the Chinese get nothing more than insults but have destroyed our economy, our health? 200,000 Americans have died as a result of the bioweapon that they released, either accidentally or by design. And yes, I have 3 experts in our class action in Dallas, Texas, who will testify that this is a bioweapon. Yesterday, I filed a pleading with the court out there because the Chinese won't even accept service. They're arrogant. They think they have no respect for the American legal system, much less this court. The Chinese people are good people, but the leadership in Beijing are pure evil, even to their own people. Why doesn't the president stand up to them? Why isn't he standing up to Antifa and everyone else that's out there in the streets, that's about ready to burn down every major city, God willing, should he win this election? Why isn't it they haven't been rounded up under the Insurrection Act and put in prison? Why does he have to ask state governors and local mayors, leftists, who he knows isn't going to do the job, to do the job? Because in Washington, D.C., it's mutual assured destruction. Don't push too hard. Just talk. Go on Fox News if you're a conservative. Go on MSNBC or CNN if you're a leftist. Raise money, promote yourself, get reelected, but don't stick your neck out. Don't do too much of anything. And that's why we, the American people, need to rise up. That's why we need to do it before it's too late. As I've said many times, it's like we're on the Titanic, on the deck, listening to music as the ship of state is sinking. And that's why I want you to go out and buy my book. You can pre-order. It's coming out on the 27th of October, right before Halloween. Yes, it is a horror story, I might say, of what's going on. And I have solutions in there, in addition to citizens' grand juries, to bring about justice with the people, on behalf of the people. You can go to Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, BooksAMillion.com, and purchase the book. But let me also weigh in on what's been going on with regard to the social media companies. Look, how many years, this is a litmus test of what I'm talking about, that we have no government. We have no government, no government. The only government we have is we the people. We the people must rise up. How many times have you heard people on Capitol Hill say, oh, we must reform the Communications Decency Act, Section 230? All talk, no action. How many times have you heard the Attorney General, Blowhard Bill, say, we're bringing an antitrust suit? He said he was going to do it by the end of September. We're now almost November. There's going to be no antitrust suit. They're all bought and paid for in Washington, D.C. They're a corrupt bunch of fools, criminals, and influence peddlers. That's all they are, period. And it is time for we, the American people, to rise up. Now, I've tried to do it at Freedom Watch. Okay, I have a class action lawsuit I brought against the social media companies. Laura Loomer is one of the defendants. She's running for Congress now down there in Palm Beach. And it's going to be going to the Supreme Court. Will the Supreme Court accept it on a petition for writ of certiorari? We'll see. But I'll tell you something. We cannot depend on the Supreme Court. I was listening to the confirmation hearings this week. I was listening to Sheldon Outhouse. Okay, his name is Whitehouse, the mafia-connected senator from Rhode Island who looks like Will Ferrell, but he's not funny, okay, like Will Ferrell is. And he's saying special interests are getting Judge Amy Coney Barrett her job on the Supreme Court as justice. You know what? He's absolutely right. Now, the woman is qualified and she's smart, and I give her that. But the irony is that even though this guy was vicious and nasty, he's one of the worst people in Congress in terms of being on the left. He was absolutely right. We cannot put our faith even in the Supreme Court. They make decisions based upon politics. They're politicians in robes. I heard that phrase many times this week. I coined that phrase at Judicial Watch when I founded it, and also now at Freedom Watch, which I run now, which I also founded. But they're a bunch of hacks, too, and that's why you got to get my book. It takes a revolution. Forget the scandal industry. We, the people, must rise up. It is too late to depend on anything in government to do our bidding. And it is too late to depend on the scandal industry. You know, it's not enough to watch Hannity or Tucker Carlson or Laura Ingraham every week or every night and be entertained. Little to nothing is accomplished. Who comes on as guests? People that don't do anything. The same people every single night. That's what it is. Over and over and over again. They give you false hope. Rush Limbaugh gives you false hope. And I like Rush, and I wish him well and hope that he gets well. But they have to offer that false hope through government, through ordinary means to get people to come back and listen. And if you're talking about discrimination, if you're talking about what Twitter did and what Facebook did in wiping the story of Vice President Biden's involvement in the shakedown of the Ukraine and China for his own profit, it's undoubted that he was profiting from this as well. Why would he stick his neck out as vice president if he wasn't jingling the change? But think of Fox News. Think of who they won't let on the air. Me, Larry Klayman, because I locked horns with Roger Ailes many years ago over the way my clients were treated, or my clients and other people like them, whether it's Dr. Jerome Corsi, whether it's Chief Justice Roy Moore, whether it's Sheriff Joe Arpaio, whether it's Laura Loomer. I can list it, and I could take on this entire show of the people who are not allowed to speak on Fox News. So just remember, it's not just Twitter and Facebook, but it's people who claim to be on our side who are the same way. And who runs Fox News today? The chairman is Lachlan Murdoch. He's a flaming leftist. His brother James is even more to the left. Who is the major figure on Fox News today? Chris Wallace, this despicable leftist who does everything he can to try to harm President Trump and to remove him from office. And there are a bunch of others over there, too. Says, get off the couch, as I say in my book. It takes a revolution. And get to work. I'll be right back with the second segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman.
Dangerous.
Don't care. Use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
The Chinese, as I said, 30% of the people who have signed up for our class action lawsuit in Dallas, Texas, and we have one in Jerusalem, Israel, and we have a criminal case in The Hague, Holland. 30% who have signed up to support us are Chinese Americans and Asian Americans. They know how evil the regime in Beijing is. You know, I think they're still doing this, but for a long time they've been killing women, children, women, infants, because of their population issue. They figure they get rid of the women because the men they think are more productive. They persecute their own people. They keep them down. Back in the early 90s, they committed one atrocity after another. They slaughtered 10,000 people in Tiananmen Square that simply were protesting with the Statue of Liberty. They are persecuting Hong Kong, which they signed an agreement with Great Britain that they would allow to have some degree of freedom. They're taking that away. So I want you to ask this basic question. You need to ask questions. Why is it that our government is doing nothing with regard to China? Do you think it's enough to insult them, as the president does, and just say it's the Kung flu, or to blame them for the COVID-19 crisis when 200,000 people have died, when hundreds of thousands have been infected, millions, as a matter of fact. And it does seem to be getting worse. Maybe it's not as lethal as it was before, but more people are contracting it. It's more out there, for lack of a better word. And the economy continues to be on its knees and destroyed. Ask yourself the question, why isn't our government freezing the assets of the Chinese in this country to pay for the damage they have done? Why is it that trillions and trillions of dollars are being appropriated to bail out businesses and other people in this country, taxpayers who have been harmed? And who do you think is going to pay for it? You and me. We're going to pay for that. Our families, our kids, our grandkids. We're hugely in debt. So, yes, I've been constructively critical of President Trump, and I want him to come clean. I want him to level to the American people, because this is very, very important. Biden won't level in anything. He's a pathological liar, and he's brain dead. But the president can really turn the tide and can ensure, in my view, his reelection if he goes in front of the American people and tells them exactly what happened with China. We know, and this is one of the people that has been pushed off of social media, Judy Mikovits, my client, a PhD in virology, who worked with Fauci at the Fort Detrick, Maryland laboratory that studies viruses to try to prevent pandemics and bioweapons attacks. Of course, they also make bioweapons. But Fauci, in conjunction with President Obama, sent the seeds of COVID-19, the SARS virus, over to the Wuhan lab to do research because it wasn't ethical or legal to do it here. And what did the Chinese do? They engineered it into a bioweapon, which got out either accidentally or intentionally. I've got 3 experts, and there's a Chinese woman out there who worked in Wuhan. We're going to locate her. She'll be an expert, too, in our cases, in the class action suit we brought in Dallas, Texas, and also Jerusalem, Israel. And we're going to be bringing cases around the world because the people of the world are fed up. They want the truth. They've been lied to, just like the American people have been lied to. So ask yourself this question. Is this why the president won't push back? Does he know that, in fact, we sowed the seeds for our own destruction? We need to come clean on that. And that's the kind of thing that I'm discussing in my book, It Takes a Revolution. The deep state, which I define, I've been living in it for 40-some years as a lawyer. You know, Limbaugh doesn't understand what goes on there. He has been in a radio studio. Hannity has no clue. He's got less than a high school education. I've lived it. I know what it's about. And that's why I want you to go out and buy my book, It Takes a Revolution. I go through the history of how they have worked against the American people, how the CIA likely assassinated Kennedy. That's just one example. So go out and buy that book, It Takes a Revolution, and support our lawsuits and our hard-hitting cases by going to freedomwatchusa.org and join our Justice League. See if you qualify for our class actions. The American people need to rise up. Now is not the time for the sunshine patriot and the summer soldier. Now is the time to act before it is too late. I'm going to have Ammon Bundy come on next. He will act. You listen to what he has to say, because we all need to be Ammon Bundys and the Bundy family. I'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm very pleased to have on the show Ammon Bundy, a very brave individual, much like the rest of his family, whether it's Cliven, Ryan, Dave, Mel, Carol, Cliven's wife, and the wives of Ammon and everybody else. They've really sacrificed for the American people. They have put themselves out against government tyranny. They fought the law, in quotes. It wasn't the law, it was the outlaw, and they won. Of course, if Biden comes back as president, we're going to have to deal with that. But right now, I want Ammon to tell us what's been going on in Idaho, because it continues to be a persecution, not just against him, not just against his family, but against any American that stands up for the Constitution and the Bill of Rights against this powerful executive deep state, both at state level and at the federal level. Ammon, welcome to Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. What's going on out there in Idaho?
Well, there's actually a lot of things going on. I don't know if it's because of, the Idaho people are resisting a little bit more, or if it's because Idaho is the same as all the other states, meaning the Idaho government. Maybe a little bit of both. But at the beginning of the COVID scare, we felt like we needed to unite and come together. We see a very possible threat to just individual liberty and everyday liberty. And we were certainly right. It wasn't very long after that they outlawed going to church here in Idaho. They outlawed any assembling. They outlawed and basically closed all the businesses. And they did it under the supposed authority of Governor Little with an order, which is similar to other states as well. And we began to see that Governor Little was following very closely, within a week or two of what the Washington Governor Inslee was doing. And so we were able to kind of preempt what Governor Little was going to do because we could see that Washington would do it first and then he would follow. Then many of the other governors, well, actually almost all of the other governors across the state would follow as well, which was not a coincidence. So we organized ourselves. We are now, People's Rights Organization, basically across the country. We've got about 37,000 people in it. And it's just local communities, kind of uniting together to combat this destruction of individual liberty. And that was, I did help make that happen. I felt like where much was given, much is expected, or, I should give it back. And so I did my best to start this and organize it and to, create it with the help of many others as well. And then what happened was we became a target, a big target nationally. But first, locally here in Idaho, the governor himself said, and we're privy to some inside information. We have some people that are, I hesitate to say, but that are close to the governor. So we know that these things, we've had multiple sources that the governor has said that Ammon Bundy and, the people that, I don't know if he said follow him. I need to get my notes exactly, but support or that are around him. He said Ammon Bundy and the people are going to be a problem when we try to implement these COVID restrictions. And he said this is in April, and then he said it again a few months later. And the second time, he was more specific about some of the vaccine plans that they have. So we became a target. The Idaho law, Larry, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the Idaho law is a very good law in the sense that it says that the governor can only have the people in emergency order status for 30 days. He can extend it another 30 days, so that makes 60, obviously. And then beyond that, he was supposed to call the legislatures together, and they were supposed to, through Republican process, they were supposed to basically govern the state and restore a republic back. Well, Governor Little, after 30 days, did not end the emergency order. After 60 days, he did not end the emergency order. And so he basically is violating the law. And then Idaho law says that on the 90th day, if the governor has not convened the legislatures, on the 90th day, the legislatures are supposed to convene themselves. This is, again, tried to restore a Republican form of government out of a dictatorship, which would be under the order of a governor, a monarchy, to restore that. Well, only 15 of the legislatures convened. There's 105 in Idaho because the governor said that they didn't have authority to convene, that they had to have the governor's permission to convene. And these legislatures in Idaho actually believed that, and only 15 of them convened, and that would have been on June 23rd. We were there in support. There's hundreds of people at the Capitol in support of those 15, but there wasn't enough to create a quorum. Because, again, Idaho law says that the legislatures can end the emergency orders, the governor's orders, at any time. They just have to convene and concur on a resolution to end it. So anyhow, we get 15. They actually passed a House proclamation. It wasn't a resolution. It was a proclamation. So they tried to do something, but they didn't have enough. They didn't even have a quorum in the House. So anyhow, then a few months later, Governor Little says, well, we're going to convene. We're going to convene the legislature. But he said it's not to vote on whether we continue the emergency order. We're going to have a special session, and I want the legislatures to pass an immunity bill to protect, the governor and his cabinet and basically the government from any COVID decisions that they've made. This was an immunity bill. The government wanted to be able to not be accountable legally for any of the destruction to the businesses, to the churches, to the individual jobs, to the violations of private rights. And so they convened, and I believe it was August 24th, the special legislation started, right? Now, how in the face it is to the Idaho people that the governor wouldn't convene the legislatures to restore a Republican form of government back to the people on June 23rd by law. He would disregard that and actually scare the legislatures from even convening. And then a few months later, convene call a special session so that he can make himself immune to the law. Anyway, so of course, thousands and thousands of Idahoans were concerned about this. And through our network and through other networks, we conveyed what was actually happening at the Capitol building. And so in the end of August, when the session started, we decided that we would participate. We would be there. We would all watch closely. We would testify in the hearings. And hundreds of people showed up. Hundreds and hundreds of people showed up, Capitol building. And when we went to go into the session, into the House, which by law, this is the people's house, right? This is owned by the people, and the people basically, Idaho has good open meeting laws and all of that. And ultimately what happened is the people were stopped at the door, and they were said that you can't come in. Only 26 people can come in. Now, the gallery in the House holds hundreds of people. I would say around 300 people. And they were saying 26 can come in because of COVID restrictions. And they were going to keep everybody else out of the Capitol, out of the process, other than just a few people that they allowed to come in. Well, the people were upset with that. It was a violation of the Constitution, a violation of, the Republican process. It was a violation of the open meeting laws of Idaho, and they insisted on coming in. Now, I was among that group. I wasn't in front of that group. I wasn't leading that group. I was certainly supporting. And so ultimately what happened is that group pushed their way in to the gallery, into the House floor. Idaho State Police tried to stop them. There was threats. There was, a struggle. One of the glass in one of the doors broke. ISP actually said that the ISP officer said that he hit it with the butt of his gun. But it looked to me like it was kind of twisted. But either way, it was an accident. It wasn't intentional. And ultimately, the House Majority Leader, Bedke, yielded and allowed the people, allowed the people to come in. And some of the same stuff happened with the in the hearings. And ultimately what happened is the next day, which was a hearing, and I won't get into a ton of the details, but ultimately they blamed it on me. They blamed this whole thing, this whole resistance, if you will, this forcing their way into the gallery. They blamed it on me. And so they arrested me the next day. They found good excuse to arrest me. There's more to the story, and I would love to go into it. I just don't know whether I have time. But they arrested me, and then they trespassed me, threw me in, actually took me to jail, spent a few hours. Someone bailed me out, and then they charged me with trespassing. And it's interesting because the letter that I received later said that the Office of Administration Office consulted with the governor and the House Speaker of the House, Bedke, and Hill, who is the Senate leader, that they consulted together and determined that I was too much of a threat to be at the Capitol building during the sessions, that I was too much of a threat, in their own words, to their normal procedures.
Well, and here's the thing, Ammon. We're running out of time. Here's the thing. I mean, the way I see it, and we'll bring you back on this periodically, but anybody who speaks out, they're quelling your right of free speech. They know that you're a leader. They know that people follow you. They respect you. You stood up before to the tyranny of government and you've won, and they've got to try to eliminate you. And that's what the left is doing right now. The left is in control of state capitals, local cities. They'll use whatever means they can to destroy you. And that's why we are in a revolution right now. I'm going to send you a copy of my new book, It Takes a Revolution. We talk about what happened to you and your dad and mom and brothers and everything. But this is part and parcel to what's going on. We are in a war with the left, and the left declared war on us, and they want to destroy you. I'm sure you agree with that, because this is something that's been going on. And hold on for the last segment, the verdict segment. So we'll give a little 3 minutes here to wrap this thing up. I'll be right back with Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. I'm here with the great American patriot, Ammon Bundy. Be right back.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Ammon Bundy's on the line, calling in from Idaho, a state that believes in individual rights and liberties. Very independent people live in Idaho. They don't want to be told what to do by tyrants in the government. Frankly, they don't know what they're doing, but they're doing it for their own political purposes and other purposes. Ammon, we have a couple minutes here. Sum this thing up in terms of this fight that you're going through in Idaho, and put it in the context of the entire country and where we're going as a whole.
I think the easiest way to do that is this is typical political warfare. There's the steps of political warfare are isolate your enemy, demonize your enemy so you can destroy them. And that is what they are attempting to do. They're attempting to try to isolate us. They just, the People's Rights Organization that we organized, they just wiped all the Facebook accounts out. Anybody's personal accounts, anybody who's associated with People's Rights across the country, they disabled all of them. They're that's their effort to isolate. Thank goodness we're not completely relying on that. for our communication, but they're trying to isolate. And now they're, articles, institutions that are doing articles, these media to demonize. The effort at the Capitol building was to demonize me and to demonize those who would stand, beside me. And they're doing that very clearly so that they can get the American people to believe something that is not true, so therefore they can justify destroying us.
And this is why, Ammon, that what you're doing is so important, and other patriots around the country are so important. We have to stand up to these people, peacefully and legally. Arresting you is like they arrested Martin Luther King, many years ago. Peaceful civil disobedience, protest. This is the real protest, not the leftist radicals in the streets that are burning, looting, maiming, and killing, but people who believe in our Constitution, like your dad and the rest of your family does. It's very important that you stand firm. I'm behind you. The American people are behind you. We thank you for what you've done. You haven't seen the end of it. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But the Heavenly Father is with us and his Son, and we will prevail. So I want to thank you for everything you do. I'll bring you back at a later show. And obviously we're in contact continuously. So thanks, Ammon. God bless you.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it.
I want to end this segment by, and I can say that I'm promoting my book. The reason I'm promoting it, and I'm not going to make probably much of anything off of this. I wrote it at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis. There was a little time. Courts were shut down. And it's a book that was within me. I had to get it out. I had to put it on paper. It's my epitaph in many ways. It's called It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. I've written other books. I've written about terrorism. I've written about the horrors in government, the media, and elsewhere, not the ones that are walking Las Vegas Boulevard, but the ones that actually are destroying this country and giving us nothing of value in return. And this particular book is perhaps the most important of all, because it talks about how we've totally broken down in all three branches of government, how the judiciary, which is supposed to protect us, the federal judiciary, has become the tool, the yes men, much like the Court of St. James was with King George III. How they get their jobs, their positions on the bench through political patronage, campaign contributions, and how they've sold the American people out, and they believe that they have life tenure, which they really don't have. It is time for we, the American people, to defend ourselves, much like Ammon Bundy is doing and others are doing, other patriots around this country, because we are at a war with the left. They want to destroy us. Frankly, they want to see us dead. That's a fact. And you can see it in the streets today. So I hope that you'll get this book. It Takes a Revolution. I have solutions that we can try short of a violent revolution. I don't want to see that, but that may be where we're headed. I'm not going to advocate that, but I want to try to arrest it with doing other things that can work, such as with citizens' grand juries. So go out and buy It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. You can get it at Amazon.com, pre-ordered. It's coming out in about 10 days. I'm sure that it'll be in high demand. Thank you for listening to me. God bless you. God bless your family. With God's grace, we will prevail. I'll be back tomorrow with a special podcast, meaning Monday, that is. And I look forward to hearing from you with your thoughts. God bless.